Buyers are looking for the unique, the special, the spectacular. They want depth, dimension, and details. And as designers, when we close our eyes and imagine our perfect pattern, we too envision work that is smart, rich, and has depth and dimension. But all too often, our final design falls short of our vision, which can be an extremely frustrating experience for any designer. No matter what you do, the final product just never looks as good as what you imagined. Before long, you start doubting your work, trying too hard to make something happen. And eventually, you end up losing interest in the entire project, or you just push it aside, hoping that you'll get back to it in the future. Well, it doesn't have to be this way. With the right guidance and a lot of practice, you can learn how to bring your vision to life quickly and easily. One of my favorite methods for adding dimension to my work is to layer various motifs and patterns within my design. By combining and layering patterns this way, I increase the visual interest and I can make the patterns more appealing to the eye. For example, here's a 2-color tossed layout. It's a great pattern, but it still feels like it needs something. Adding a background pattern, like you see here on the right, makes the final design more dynamic and impressive to buyers. So let me show you my process. So here I am in Illustrator, and I like this toss layout that I have developed, but I feel like it could be stronger, more dynamic, more interesting and appealing to buyers. So one way that I can quickly do this is by working with the motifs that I have already developed. Sometimes designing additional motifs is a necessity, and that's what you have to do to make your pattern more interesting. But that's not always the case. I usually try and work with the motifs that I've already spent time developing in order to save myself time and my clients money. So you can see that I have a layered file that I'm working with. I have my background layer, and my motifs are in my foreground layer. I'm also working in a 13-inch by 19-inch artboard. So to add a little bit of interest to this design, I'm going to copy my foreground motifs. You can just select that layer there, press Command C for copy, and Command B to paste in back. I am then going to create a new layer. I like to work with layers so that my motifs are separated and I can easily go in and delete and update my layers and motifs. So I now have my copied foreground motifs on a second layer, layer number 3. And since I pasted directly below, you can't really see my new motifs. So I am going to first rotate my motifs 180 degrees so that they have a different layout than my original motifs. So press R and enter to bring up your rotate window. Type in 180 and press OK. The second way that I'm going to make these new motifs stand out from my initial motifs is to change the color. And I have this beautiful gold color here that I've been working with in this collection. And last but not least, the third way that I will differentiate these background motifs is to scale them up. That's a trick that I use often when I'm working with this technique. I like to scale these background motifs up so that the design doesn't get too busy and too hectic. It also brings a nice variety to the design. So let's zoom out a little bit, and holding down my shift key, I'm going to scale these motifs up until I have a nice variation in scale. And I think that looks pretty pretty good. It's already such an improvement on my original toss layout, but let's see what it would look like if I added a third layer of motifs in the background. So I'm going to go through the same process once again. I'm going to highlight my foreground motifs, copy, Command C, paste in back, Command B, and create a new layer on the bottom. I'm going to scale these motifs up a great deal, so I don't think rotating is really necessary for this final step. Holding down my Shift key, scale these motifs up. Oops, I lost them there. And of course, if you want to, you could press the hotkey S and enter to bring up your scale window. Sometimes I just like to do this by hand when I'm not sure how big I want the motifs to be. And let's see what that looks like. Ooh, I like that scale. But I definitely need to change the colors so that they don't blend in with my foreground motifs. So I'm going to highlight that layer and change them to a really subtle navy that is just slightly lighter than the background. I think that looks nice. There. So I took a very, very simple tossed layout and made it more interesting, more dynamic, and more appealing to buyers and the consumer by adding these layers and working with layers of patterns within my final design. By copying your existing motifs and layering them below or on top of your main motifs, you can begin creating more dynamic, appealing patterns with little additional effort. Simple techniques like this one will enable you to begin bringing your vision to life quickly and easily. So now it's your turn. I challenge you to experiment with adding a background pattern to a new design or as an update to an existing design. Then consider sharing your work with us via Instagram using the hashtag Pattern Observer. If you share your patterns in this feed, you might be featured. If you're interested in learning more, we just opened up enrollment for our Summer of Creativity course, which starts on Monday, July 18th. The 7-week creative exploration will arm you with insider techniques such as the one that I've just shared. Grab your spot using the link below.